we have another question, and maybe this is also for Karen, I don't know, but it talks about gray areas, so perhaps that's for you. It says, in gray areas of city code or charter, what's the balance of power, or how is the balance of power determined between council and manager? Anybody? Is that a question for you, Karen?
I'll try.
You'll take it?
Yeah, sure. I think our charter
I guess,
is pretty
do we
specific
have any gray
about
areas?
There are always gray areas when you're trying to interpret words that were written many years ago. And so we use our charter, as you say, as our constitution. So it specifically sets out the roles and responsibilities of the city manager and the elected officials. Of course, there are particular situations that arise where you have to look at those words and try to apply them to that situation.
Can you think of an example, perhaps?
Not right off the top of my head, and I need to be careful about that as the lawyer for the
as
city.
the attorney,
but
anybody else can think of an example.
Yeah, but just from a perspective of how you interpret the gray areas, what you try to do is that you try to, you go and look at what do the words say, look at the facts of the specific situation, see if there's any, from my perspective, any law out there that maybe a case has talked about or maybe the Attorney General has rendered opinion on. And at the end of the day, you try to make your best call on what you think those provisions mean. And hopefully the manager and the council look at that as well and try to make the best call that they can based upon either the previous interpretations or, if it's a matter of first impression, making the best decision they can in that situation.
Wonderful, thank you. Anybody else wants to respond?
I would only respond in the sense that I like the term, gray area. It's been described to me before as, like, in theory, there's a straight line between the policymakers and staff and implementation. There's just this line. That's how a city manager form of government, or a manager council form of government, is supposed to work. Here's a line, council's over here setting policy, here's management and staff implementing that policy. The pragmatic reality is that it's not a straight line. It's more of like a wavy line, and sometimes policy flows into implementation, and implementation flows into policy. It's just not a clear black and white line, and I don't think it would work well if it was always just a straight, rigid line. That said, I do think there needs to be, kind of an acknowledgement of this is the form of government that we have here in the city of Austin, is laid out by our city charter, this manager council form of government. And as that line gets too wavy too often, I do think it creates problems. So I do think it is a gray area. It's not always a clean cut, clear line. I mean, I do think there are instances of case law and instances where there's been discrepancies, and that sometimes might help clarify what is a manager's role versus what is a council member role, and the attorney's office needs to interpret all that and make a recommendation at the end of the day.